So I think the most vivid admission about the position of consoles just maybe accidentally got exposed by PlayStation punditry. I don't know exactly what's going on in this particular podcast, but the things that are being said, they are surprising to me. Because I remember that some of these things were alluded to and insinuated, and man, you would have been called crazy if you had said this. Listen to this.
This generation think that the Sony, because we all have short-term memory, and you remember this, P-Rock, from last generation, right? The Sony that everyone talks about with PS4 was hot. That was the second half. This is the second half. And Sony literally even said in their quarter four reports that they expect their IP and software to really blow up over the next year and then leading forward. So, P-Rock, let me ask you a question. How do you look at, as a PlayStation 5 Pro owner, how do you look at the next 3.5 years as we go into as we enter the PS6 era?
This is a very interesting question. PS5 Pro owner, how do you look at the coming generation? Let me answer from the PS4 side. I owned a PS4 Pro. At the time I got the PS4 Pro, do you know what games hit the market from the PlayStation side? It was Spider-Man, it was God of War, and then the generation was winding down, was Ghost of Tsushima, and it was Last of Us. It was Last of Us Part 2. I didn't play Last of Us Part 2, but I played these other titles that I just basically mentioned to you around the same time. So PS4 Pro, there was a God of War PS4 Pro. I bought a used one at GameStop and traded my PS4 for it, and then it died. Thankfully, I had insurance, so I got the Red Dead Redemption 2 PS4 Pro. That was what GameStop basically reimbursed me with for just giving them, I think, $25 or so. Now, let's listen to somebody who's about to transition into possibly the next generation of consoles on the PlayStation that owns a Pro right now. Listen to what they're saying in this regard.
Are you happy, not happy, pissed off, or do you see promise?
No, as long as the game's released, of course we'll be happy. But the game's got to release. Right now it's just empty promises. You know what I'm saying? As long as the game's released, of course. You know, and that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Just get these games out there.
Yeah,
get them
I agree.
And stuff, right?
I agree.
But it's going to be a problem if these games, when they finally release, right? If some of them are cross-gen games for the PS6, I want to play it on the PS6, but then I'm going to be like, man, this sucks that I didn't get to use my PS5 Pro. So at that point, I will be hesitant to support any mid-gen refresh. Yes.
Because they sold hardware. And a lot of you touted the hardware as this crazy thing. But one thing many of you probably glossed over, you knew, but you glossed over it, was that the software cadence was going to suck compared to Xbox. I say that because you know that they threw Xbox in here, right? Watch.
So I'm saying this goes back to a bigger conversation I had on my podcast. You know, we had this many times. I think you might even, when you were on the podcast, you were probably even a part of the conversation. I said there's a math problem that's happening in the industry, right? If you're a platform provider, right? If you create consoles, right? Especially, and to be honest, I think this is pretty much an exclusive PlayStation, you know, because who knows what Xbox is going to do. But Sony definitely has a math problem. They have consoles, and if they're still sticking with this 7 to 8 year generation, quote.
Did you see that sleight of hand? I don't know what Xbox is going to do. Like, Xbox isn't going to make hardware and give value.
Unquote. Yet games are taking 5 to 6 years to make. That's not enough games for that studio per generation. Because at best, you might get 2 games at best. And that's assuming they launch a game at the beginning of the gen, at launch, which will most likely be a cross-gen game. Then they start working on the second game, and it comes out 5-6 years later, almost towards the end of the gen. That's your best case scenario.
That's crazy. And when you think about it, it's not actually far from the truth. Look at Naughty Dog. Look at Sucker Punch. Look at Santa Monica. How has their cadence been? Insomniac has always been an outlier. But these studios so far, the last game that Sucker Punch released was Ghost of Tsushima, and that was in 2019? July 2020. They're going to release Ghost of Yotei, which is an anthology, pretty much 5 years later. That's insane. Santa Monica released in 2018, and then they released God of War Ragnarok in 2022. Wow. Naughty Dog released The Last of Us Part 2, right? TLOU 2 release date in 2020, around the same. I remember they swapped out Ghost of Tsushima's release date for The Last of Us 2 because it had leaked. They wanted to get it out early. And all Naughty Dog has done for 5 years after the launch of that game is remasters and all of that. I don't know if you guys are seeing what we're seeing here. Housemark, Returnal, 2021. And they're promising to bring another game in 2026. The cadence is actually basically, compared to Xbox, the cadence is all wonky.
For studio, 2 games.
Yeah.
One full game for the console and one cross-gen game. Like Gorilla. Literally.
Well,
That's
let me.
not good,
So listen, because
that's terrible.
So wait, so P-Rock.
So I'm advocating. This is what I'm advocating. You got to extend the gen. We can't have these 7-year gens no more. It's just you just can't.
So the hardware is basically pointless at this point in terms of upgrading or updating, because they'll never do a mid-gen refresh that hampers the base level console, which is what Mark Cerny basically was saying.
If games are taking 5-6 years to make, you can't have 7-year. Let me put it this way: Mark Cerny produced more new hardware than Naughty Dog's producing new games.
This is exactly what I wanted you guys to hear. Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that?
He released the PS5. He's released the PS5 Pro.
Okay.
And if Intergalactic comes out with the PlayStation 6, he released the 6.
The Portal.
So Sony got more new shit than a developer.
Yeah. No. Listen. So everything you said.
That is actually bad. That you're a gaming company, and you have more hardware than every of your individual studios. You almost have as much hardware to match each of your individual studios. We just looked at it just now. Wow. They're taking a long time to cook these games up. Insomniac's been the one that's pretty much broken the cycle. The others, I have no idea what they're talking about.
P-Rock, I can ride with you there, but P-Rock, I can ride with you there. But listen, we don't talk about this because things are different over on the Xbox side right now. But when you look,
why don't you talk about it? What is different on the Xbox side? They didn't do a mid-gen refresh. Instead, they did a shadow drop of a big game. That says that these guys are actually very interested in games. They've basically gone ahead to establish themselves as the biggest player in the metric that it mattered the most. If it didn't matter that much, you wouldn't even have this podcast topic, because that's exactly what is being mentioned here.
Look at it. You've got a situation right now. What does the coalition put out this generation? They're
hurting too.
What has 343 done besides Halo Infinite, which passed away in 3 months?
What was that quadruple A studio that they formed?
Now give Playground their flowers, because Forza Horizon 5 was great, but it's going to be a while. Like Fable might be next year. That could be if there's a delay.
You are right. Those other studios on the Xbox line too, they haven't, brought out games in a very close cadence. However, Xbox has got many of them cooking now, and Xbox has got 4 publishers. Microsoft has 4 game publishers under it. Xbox Game Studios, Activision, Blizzard, Bethesda, and King. 5. These are all publishing capable players. So Xbox Game Studios, they're also taking their time cooking, but they have Bethesda to stand in. They have Activision to stand in. They're not in the same situation as Xbox overall from all of its studios. Because when PlayStation has a slow year and brings out 2 titles, Xbox's slow year will look like 5. Because Bethesda is capable of 1 a year every year, if not even 2 in some cases. Then you have Activision, who's capable of 1 a year and maybe 2 every 3 years in terms of big games. Right? Then you have Xbox Game Studios, who's capable of maybe 1 every 2 years. But hey, in just this last few months, they've brought out something from Avowed. They're going to be bringing out the Outer Wilds. And then South of Midnight came from the studio that's been Compulsion Games. Coalition is the one that probably needs to be looked at. Coalition Games. Who are these guys? Oh, they're cooking up a Gears game. I think Gears of War 5 came out in 2019. Gears 5. That was a 2019 title. Yeah, they've been in the oven for a long time. But here's the crazy thing. This game has multiplayer. And if I remember, like The Division, games like these would take a lot of time. A game like this would take a lot of time. It's not unless they're making a mistake to make a one and doneer, but I don't think Gears is going to be a one and doneer.
Could bump out to 27. So what I'm saying to you is like, because everyone's like, well, Xbox is firing on all cylinders. They went and bought 30 teams.
Yes. They put their money in the most important metric. PlayStation went and blocked maybe 30 games from going to Xbox. Xbox went out there and acquired teams because they wanted to basically get gamers the thing that mattered the most. Again, you're over here saying, oh, they went and bought 30 teams to achieve something that we don't have or we haven't achieved when you had the opportunity to achieve them and never did.
Like, yeah, they're coming out with game, right? So what I'm saying to you, I hear you. So, but one thing I don't agree with you though, P-Rock, is we can't extend. We can't because no, you can't. Technology.
You don't have a choice, Moon.
P-Rock, technology
with 6-year games.
You know what? They can argue it out. Let them fight. Let them fight it out. Again, like I said, the world that we live in, right? That PlayStation is living in right now, that a PlayStation user base is living in right now, is the one that they built, is the one that they championed, is the one that they cheered for. This is why now, again, PlayStation Plus users are looking at Xbox going, you guys have so much so many games. You're putting games on PlayStation. You have so many games. You're giving all of your subscribers access to them. What is PlayStation even giving us? PlayStation doesn't even have enough titles to basically do anything like that with. And games are the differential. I don't even think Xbox needs to extend or needs to go out and bring new consoles, to be honest. I think they just need to keep making Series S's and X's and then adding to Series S's and X's in a way that's very interesting and intuitive for anybody who may want maybe more, functionality, but keep the Series S and X just relevant for the next 10 years. These games don't need to go crazy. They need to be fun. They need to be, measured. They need to be directed at the gamer that actually wants to play them. It's insane. Just think about it. Why are PlayStation gamers discontent talking about how Xbox Game Pass is a better deal? Because gamers just want games. Hardware has always been a nonsense metric. Judging by exactly how it was funny that he said Mark Cerny has put out more hardware than Naughty Dog has this entire generation. And that's not just Naughty Dog. That could be said for almost every team. Now, you could say it on the Xbox side, but the analogy basically stands and it actually creates a vivid picture of exactly what Pro Rock is trying to put out here. Interesting stuff. Talk to me in the comment section, ladies and gentlemen. I'm out.